Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. Today I'm going to talk about content supply chain, and at the end of the session I hope that you'll feel that you've improved your knowledge on this topic. Maybe we've got some questions we can pick up and talk about, about your business use cases. I'll first give you a little bit of an introduction into my background. I won't spend too much here though. So the last 15 years I've spent working in the marketing technology space. I'm a global director at Bluprintx, and we are accredited to deliver the Adobe content supply chain, one of only 4 partners globally at present. And I also recently led a 2.5-year transformation with a New York-based investment management firm to deliver a content supply chain transformation. So I'm going to start talking about my view 5 years ago, because as we know, with things like AI, automation, the world is rapidly changing. So 5 years ago, if I was working as a consultant and you asked me to take a look at your maybe marketing technology stack, I would have told you that marketing automation should sit at the center of that technology stack. What I used to like to do is you drive all your engagement in, you'd personalize and build multi-channel campaigns, and then you kick out your MQLs for the sales team to follow up. It's quite a traditional approach, and I'm sure you've all seen that concept before. But today's challenges have changed, and we have to look at things slightly differently today. So a couple of the major challenges that we see in the market. Number one, the pressure to deliver content and the amount of content and different types of content we're being asked to produce. No longer is it just an email, a web page, and a blog post. It's TikTok, it's LinkedIn, it's print material. It's extremely time consuming. It's difficult to organize for marketing teams. At the same time, budgets are being cut and headcounts being cut. So how can we deliver more with less? And then something that I don't believe we're talking about enough in the industry is the impact that these challenges are having on people today. People are spread too thin. They're at full capacity. There's low morale in a lot of the teams that I'm working with. And also that's creating key people risk. There's people in these businesses that have got 3-4 years worth of knowledge. The processes are not documented. It's all in their head. And if they were to walk away tomorrow, it would set organizations back 6 months, 2 years. For me, this should be the driver for change. Unfortunately, in most cases it isn't, but really helping your people grow and take away those, stress and pressures that they're under. But I'm going to talk about a solution that can help solve that. So what is content supply chain? I'm sure that's what everybody's thinking. Everyone's got a slightly different view and opinion of it. But basically it's an end-to-end process of creating, managing, distributing and monetizing content across multiple platforms, so you can create the content and then you can execute it in an automated fashion. And then my view today, and this has been a big change in my world, and I've had to be open-minded and take a step back and be willing to learn. All them years of experience going in a particular direction, I've now had to pivot and say, no, that was wrong. That's not going to work in today's world with today's challenges. So on the left-hand side, we've still got marketing automation, tools like Adobe Marketo. We're still doing, personalized campaigns, multi-channel, lead management, all those traditional things that we were doing before. On the right-hand side, you've got your CMS and your digital asset management tool. So we're storing documents, putting the metadata against that so we can reuse that content. And obviously we've got a client-facing website. But the big change is the engine in the middle. It's no longer marketing automation, it's a workflow management tool. Tools like Adobe Workfront. Within those tools, you can manage content requests. You can manage your compliance approvals. You can also manage all your marketing technology projects. And I also like to set up ticketing systems, because nothing worse than trying to deal with requests that are coming on chat and on email. Instead, I like to funnel all those requests into one place so my team can work through them with clear SLAs. It's also important to note that the configuration of a content supply chain doesn't have to be with one vendor. There are many different ways to do it. You could easily have a HubSpot as your marketing automation tool, with a Monday.com as your workflow management tool, and something like, Media Valet as your digital asset management platform. A lot lower cost, a little bit more difficult to integrate because you're not using that one vendor solution, but you can still achieve the same outcome. So you don't have to rip out technology and start all over again. You can look at the technology you've got and repurpose it. And then where do we need to focus to solve today's challenges? So the big change is productivity. Years ago, it was all about revenue, budget was flying in, we had agencies supporting us left, right and centre. It's not the case anymore, so we really have to double down on the productivity improvements. We're always going to focus on revenue, because that pays the bills. But the other area we have to focus is people growth. No longer can we afford individuals in the team with just a single skill set. We need multi-skilled individuals that can work across multiple platforms and operate and complete a variety of tasks. We need that flexibility in marketing teams today because there's such a variation in what we do. And then some of the core pillars to achieving a successful content supply chain transformation. So the first thing, one of the most important tasks, is to map out all of your marketing processes. So the process to create an email, the process to create a web page, a blog post, a social post. I'm even working with Asda at the moment, and those big pieces of swinging cardboard from the roof, they produce 400 of those a week, and they're distributed to the stores, from printers all over the country. We're helping them create them at scale and mapping out those processes for them as well. So you can use a content supply chain to create any type of content. It's also important that you associate the responsibilities and dependencies to those processes as well. And then, of course, you're going to have to integrate and automate those processes using the tools that you've got. And then data. It's also important to look at the different data points that you need to support the processes. Let's take segmentation, for example. We'll pick something really easy. We're basically segmenting by country. In our workflow management tool, we need to be able to select the audience. That needs to match the data point that we've got in our marketing automation tool. And then ideally, it also needs to match the data point that we're seeing on our CRM system so the sales team know which segment we're targeting as well. So it's really important to look at the data that flows between these platforms and ensure there's consistency, and obviously that those data points are integrated. By integrating different data points as well, it's going to help us provide clearer reporting for our stakeholders, things like capacity and progress reports, probably reports that we've not seen predominantly in marketing, over the last 5 years. And then people, and this is what me and Simon were having a quick chat about before I jumped up on stage. And for me, this is probably the most important slide in the whole presentation. Before you embark on any transformation, it's really important that you get the people on board. No transformation is going to be successful with a poor culture. It's going to be extremely challenging, and the likelihood is that the project will fail. What I like to do before the start of any project is really focus on the benefits to the individuals. I'd love to say that my people care that the business is going to make 20 million or 20 trillion from this transformation. They don't. That isn't something that's going to affect them as individuals. It's not going to affect their family. It's not going to help them with career growth. So I like to pivot the direction of the conversation and really talk about, listen, if we embark on this transformation together as a team, you're going to learn new skills. You tell me somewhere else where you learn new skills that are going to help you increase your pay or give you career growth. University, you have to pay thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars. But, working in a big organization, if you embrace it and really get behind the change, you can learn skills that are going to be valuable and that you could take to other organizations as you progress your career. So I really like to sit down with the team and emphasize the benefits to them. It's really important to build a healthy culture as well. and listen to the team and make sure that they feel supported. And then point 3 is one of my most important tips for everybody. It's balancing business as usual with growth projects. So what I've found working in marketing operations is that tasks like creating emails and web pages, if I'm being totally transparent, it's a little bit like working in a modern day digital factory. People will burn out and leave your organization. Good people that are super skilled, if you give them 100%, of BAU type tasks, so they're just building emails or web pages all day. So what I like to try and do is try and get that BAU to something around 50 to 60% of their role. And then the rest of the time, I like to try and look at growth projects that are going to help them grow as individuals, analyzing data, them giving their opinion on how we can improve, them looking at process pain points and feeding that back into the team, maybe an integration that's going to challenge them a little bit, it's going to put them outside the comfort zone. But these are the projects that are going to keep those individuals in your organization, that they're going to feel that you're really looking after them and helping them grow. And then also reward and praise. When I was younger and I was a consultant, maybe I was a bit egotistical. I used to love getting that praise myself. It made me feel good. I think I was the key guy on the project. But as I've grown older, I've realized that that's not the right approach, and actually, pushing that praise down onto the team, seeing the individuals around me, smile and grow in confidence and being comfortable in supporting, the operation, I get much more satisfaction from that now. I think as I've grown and matured, it's definitely something I've learned along the way. And then, best practice content supply chain architecture. So a lot of people ask me the question, what does it look like, Andy? How does it all fit together? So this is a simple, flow diagram. For you guys out there that are integration or data specialists, there are a few, extras that would need to go on here to obviously, showcase the intricacies of some of the integrations that go into a transformation like this. But this is a simplified version for you. So down the left-hand side, you've got all of the different content types that you might be asked to produce. Your web pages, your social posts, videos, animations, images, graphics, photos, print material. The pink box is your workflow management tool. So that could be your Workfront, your Monday.com, maybe Jira. You create a form so people in the business can request a piece of content. They can say, hey, I would like a web page. No problem. That then sends an alert to the team. We take a look at that. We allocate resource and we approve that request. A project is then created, and the project is predefined. We're not creating the tasks as the request comes in. We've already thought about the tasks during the transformation project, so everything's mapped out. We know the different sort of sequences that we've got to move through to produce that asset. Within tools like Workfront and Monday.com as well, you might not know this, but they also have compliance approval modules, which is great if you work in a regulated industry like pharma, medtech, financial services. So you can also take the asset through content approval. Even if you don't work in those industries, I'd highly recommend you do this just to improve quality control. Once the asset has been approved, we can then use integrations to actually auto-create those assets within our orchestration tools. So you can actually auto-create an email using integrations. You can create a social post. You can create a web page. So you can basically push the metadata into a template, and it will create that asset for you. You can even push images. It's a URL, it's hosted, and the image will render and show on the email or web page. Obviously, we use those orchestration tools then to communicate with our customers. But what we're also going to do is all the assets that we build, we should store them in a digital asset management platform. The reason for this, and this again alleviates stress and pressure off the team, is that we can reuse content. This is not done often enough in businesses. We're constantly creating new and putting more and more pressure on the teams when we've actually got pieces of content that have probably only been sent to small audiences that have performed very, very well. Let's go to that digital asset management platform, pick out those pieces of content and use them to create campaigns rather than creating new every single time. The orchestration tools also collect a lot of engagement. We can then feed that back into CRM and CDP to give sales teams better intelligence. And then insights and intelligence, this is where it started to get really interesting. So again, 5 years ago, the type of insights that, marketing operations wanted to see were ROI reports, what's our most engaged product, what's our best performing campaign. But the type of things we want to add to our dashboards today are capacity, progress reports, how much did it cost to create each asset. There was a project I was working on, and we were spending nearly 100,000 with a major agency in the US, creative agency, to create some of our creative campaigns. Once I'd implemented the content supply chain, I could clearly see that the cost of those assets was not seeing the return. And actually, campaigns that we were creating internally with our own resources were sometimes outperforming those campaigns. And I managed to feed that back into senior leadership, and we made the change and we stopped making those investments because it wasn't paying off. Also in the middle, big topic at the moment, everyone loves to talk about it, we've got AI. So how can we use AI to support the content supply chain? So there's many, many use cases. A couple that I really like is you can use it for content creation. So we can plug something like a ChatGPT into a workflow management tool. You could put a piece of thought leadership at the top, and you could ask it to create the social post, the blog post, and the introduction email. We could also use AI on the digital asset management platform. So one of the failure points for digital asset management is metadata. It requires people to tag each content with the product, the theme, the expiry date if you're in a regulated industry, and often people can get these tags wrong. So we can actually use AI search on the DAM to enhance that. The AI tool can actually read the content, it can process the images, and it can pull forward maybe a group of campaigns or different content that we wouldn't have selected previously if we were just using the standard metadata tags. I'd also highly recommend that you integrate the creative suite with your content supply chain. I've worked at a couple of major banks, and I'm sure some people in this room work for big enterprise businesses. You try and send a video to someone by email in an enterprise business, it is an absolute nightmare. It won't send, the file's too big, next minute you've got the security and risk officer on the phone, what you're trying to do. So you have to use some sort of clunky file share tool, you've got to upload it, you've got to put a password in, you've got to send it to your colleague. Imagine trying to do this for a 4 or 5 step process where you've got to package it up every time. It takes 4 or 5 days just to send a video file. That's not what people want to be doing with the time. But if we can integrate the creative suite, we can push images and video content either into the DAM, or we can push it into the workflow management tool for compliance approval. Yeah, now the fun part, the performance gains. And these numbers are pretty impressive. Some of the best ROI numbers I've seen, across any marketing operations solution in my 15 years. So let's first start with looking at individual channels. So first of all, we've got emails, web pages, and social posts. This particular use case, this team was producing 1,600 assets a year across these 3 different channels. And you can clearly see that we were saving considerable time through the implementation of a content supply chain. So the purple bar is the before, and the pink bar is the after. So for each channel, we saved time. It was a lot more efficient and effective once we implemented the content supply chain. If we looked at that in a stacked bar chart, we can see overall that the cost saving, or time saving, sorry, is roughly about 12,000 hours. It's a big chunk of time. I think that roughly equates to maybe 2.5 headcount. So you're basically freeing up 2.5 people in the team to do more innovative and added value things. If we then add some financial numbers to that, you can obviously see the potential impact of that from an ROI standpoint. So like I said, 1,600 assets being produced in a year. The old process took roughly about 16 hours. Through the implementation of a content supply chain, we managed to save, just under 8 hours per asset. Now that's from ideation to execution. And some of these processes that we replaced, the existing process was like somebody filling out a spreadsheet and sending it to somebody on an email, and then an agency being involved. So these old processes were poor. These certainly weren't fit for purpose in the modern world. Overall, we saved just under 12,000 hours. The average hourly rate in the business was $22.97. It was a blend of EMEA resource, North America resource, and then I also had a fantastic team based in Pune in India that was super talented. The overall saving was just over $250,000. Sorry, just over $250,000, that's correct. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't go straight on your bottom line. You know, I wish it did. I'm sure everyone would be signing up today for content supply chain if that was the case. But what it does do, it lowers your cost base and increases your margin, and obviously makes the whole operation more efficient. Now, what are the benefits that we see from a content supply chain implementation? So the first one is, you know, boosted morale. You know, people enjoy using processes when it works well. A great example of this is the Uber app. I don't even think people realize they're actually following a process. It's a very simple, slick process. It's enjoyable to use. It's super cool. And you can have the same impact in your business. You know, if you use some of these modern day tools, they've got great user interfaces. You know, people actually enjoy completing these processes, filling out the forms, using the drop downs, click and select, and you can see it progressing through the different phases. Now, if people are enjoying using processes, what you will find is they learn quicker. You know, when people enjoy work, knowledge increases. And then obviously you get higher levels of staff retention. I even had a team member, it was one of the guys in Pune, he came to me, he said, Andy, I've got a job offer, place in Dubai. I said, Janesh, go. What an amazing opportunity. He said, I don't want to go, I love working here. He said, they're always teaching me new things, and he ended up staying. I don't know why. But, you know, that's the impact you can have on a team if you know, build a strong culture and people are enjoying and they're learning day to day. In terms of the stakeholders, you know, what they want is greater visibility. So now they can see the capacity, they can see resource, they can see progress. But, you know, in a regulated industry, we can also identify issues, you know, where it went wrong. If, you know, if there was a typo, did that happen at the brief stage? You know, has the integration failed us? We can clearly break down, you know, where that went wrong. If something's being passed back and forth on email and spreadsheets, it's so difficult to pinpoint, you know, where that issue happened. Productivity's massively improved. And then we can obviously reinvest that time, you know, doing cool things, the things that we all love, the innovative stuff that, you know, is going to really impress the stakeholders, you know, in the business. And some of those things that I've been focusing on when I do free up time are obviously improved personalization. You know, we all know that, you know, better segmentation and personalized campaigns, you know, do see better engagement. That's been proven time and time again. I also spent a lot of my time focusing on lead management. You know, I've got some really cool concepts around lead management that I've rolled out over the years, and obviously the time that we saved, we managed to roll out, you know, lead management across all markets for one of the projects I was working on. And then also looking at things like AI. You know, how can you look at AI if you haven't got control of your BAU? You have to get control of your BAU first and make sure that your operation is running smoothly, and then you can take a step forward and start looking at your AI strategy. One of the things I've been looking at and implementing for the teams that I'm working with is the AI search piece on the digital asset management tool. It's really cool, and you can do things like, you know, show me all the images of people with smiley faces, and it will bring all the images to the forefront and allow you to use them, you know, to build out a campaign. And then some of the key takeaways. So hopefully you got the message about, you know, people and culture. It's something that is really close to my heart. I really feel that you've got to get that right first before you embark on a transformation. There's nothing better than being in a team and that you feel like you're part of something, you know, and that you're all driving forward together in the right direction. If you can get that right, you can tackle any challenge that, you know, will be thrown at you. The other thing is to map out those workflows correctly. You know, I work with a great consultant at Adobe who taught me something very early on, and he said to me, if a process does not work outside of a workflow management tool, it won't work inside the workflow management tool either. The technology does not fix broken processes, but what it will do is make a process that works more efficient and effective. So I think Louise was talking about this yesterday on the dinner. It's really important to work with those process owners and get those pain points resolved. You know, get the process mapped out, get it to a place where it's going to work efficiently and effective, and then you can start to automate things and you'll see success. Part 3 is selecting the right technology. There's far too many businesses with technology stacks that are, you know, siloed and not integrated, simply because they didn't make the right technology solutions. You know, different stakeholders have come in over the years with different opinions, and they've just dropped in their favorite tool, rather than actually looking holistically and saying, okay, how can I bring this all together so it can work efficiently and effectively? And you really have to have that holistic vision to make sure that you select the right tools. Like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be one vendor. There's some great tools that work together and they partner up with each other. But it is important to make that assessment. And if you get that right, you can bring technology together in 6 months. But if you get that wrong, it could take you years to integrate your technology stack. And finally, thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you've all taken something from today's presentation, and I will be around the venue. If anybody's got any questions, I would love to answer them for you and talk you through content supply chain in a little bit more detail.